It's really hard to know where you're going if you don't know where you've been. Our sport of rodeo has so much history, either hanging on a belt buckle, a picture on a wall, or a scar on your chin. Those great memories are made with great stock. This week, we get to visit a legend of the sport of rodeo and a walking history book of yesterday and today. The RFD headquarters is 25 miles south of Pueblo, Colorado, home of the Duke of the Chutes, Harry Vold. This robe.
This man has sent livestock to every national finals rodeo ever held. He is the most respected cowboy. He's the only man ever to have been voted 11 times the Stock Contractor of the Year, and he is a Pro Rodeo Hall of Famer. Would you please welcome the Duke of the Chutes? This is Harry Vold with the Harry Vold Rodeo Company out of Colorado.
Started because I got hung up with a load of horses on the Canadian side of the border. It was in an era when tractors were coming in and horses were being moved out, and we were buying and trading work horses. Leo Kramer was the big rodeo producer in the United States, and they found our ranch. We sent several horses to Kramer. And then, after about 3 or 4 years, I had a load ready to go to Kramer to cross the border, and they declared foot and mouth in Mexico. That closed all borders. There I was with this load of bucking horses on the Canadian side. Mr. Kramer says, I don't know whether they'll ever open this border again. You just as well get rid of, sell them. Well, I couldn't find anybody who wanted to buy a load of bucking horses. So I went to the Ponoka Stampede and asked them if they would let me buck them horses. Now they had their man hired and they didn't need them. So I walked and watched the Ponoka Stampede. It wasn't very good, I didn't think. I said, I'd buck these horses for nothing just to get them bucked. So we did, and we put riders in the sky. It was pretty good. A rodeo from 80 miles away, Stettler, were there, and they want to know how they could get those horses. I made a deal with Stettler for $8 a head, and my brother and I trailed them. It took us 3 days with a wagon, and we bucked them in Stettler, and that's kind of where it all started. I trailed the horses for the first part. And then, of course, the next thing was we put them on the railroad. And I liked the railroad. If I had my way, I would still be on the railroad. Now we have the big trucks that haul as many as 40 horses. Gene Autry made a statement one time that I never forgot. He said, if you're going to take care of these big rodeos, you need to be in Colorado. It's the hub of the wheel. When we were going full swing, while I was doing Cheyenne, I did Cheyenne Frontier Days for 36 years. Of course, that takes more stock than any other rodeo. But I was doing about 20 to 24 rodeos, representing well over 120 or 30 performances. We would try to maintain a herd of about from 200 to 250 head of bucking horses. I've tried to maintain a strong reputation where a handshake is as good as a legal document, and it's still the best contract. And not everyone likes to think so, but I do. The cowboys are a big part of what we do. I try to treat them all as fairly as I possibly can. And I like to be known as a very honest person. I'd like to keep the business going, keep it alive. It's very different than what it used to be. We used to do it all. The rodeo business has a contract. You're allotted a contract for X amount of dollars, and you have to stay within your budget like doing all other business. I used to furnish the announcer, all the different people, contract acts, brass band, and of course now it's all gone to tapes. I haven't got a brass band anywhere, and I used to have a brass band at every rodeo I had, and I miss the brass band. Now, many of these big rodeos will bring in several contractors. Many of them chop it all up 10 different ways. The national finals helped create that. They're trying to advertise the fact they've got all the best stock in the country.
Back in the day, it seems to cycle through different stock contractors that are on top at that time, you know, and when Dad had his era, and then Ike Sankey and, you know, Kessler, and all these guys have been the kingpin for, you know, amount of time, and then their bloodlines kind of change out and stuff. You know, I don't know, it's not that the people that have been the kingpins in the past, those horses still would have been great horses now. It's just that there weren't as many of them, you know. A guy that had a great set of horses, he had 10 stars, you know, and then he had some nice, good horses that carried the weight. And those 10 stars, you know, Dad was always famous for putting them out on Saturday night. And you'd have an outstanding performance, and, you know, you'd have a good rodeo throughout, but the main money was always won on that Saturday night perf. But there's just so many more of them, you know. It's so much more competitive now, rodeo is stock-wise, just because there's so much more money.
And the more money, the more cowboys. And everybody wants to win more money. In 1950, things weren't near as good as they are now as far as prize money is concerned. But the cost of operation was much, much different.
There's just so many more steps that are being taken to just bring up the level of the animals that are in the sport, the production, the pageantry. Rodeo in itself, I mean, it used to just be like targeted to county fairs and a celebration of Western lifestyle. And now you're going into big coliseums, and you're in the middle of, you know, downtown New York or in Dallas, and, you know, they've streamlined it where some of it's only invitational to the top cowboys, and not everybody can enter. And it's not, these aren't bad changes, they're just changes. You got to progress. I mean, anything progresses.
The PBR have done a lot about recognizing prize money.
Well, the PBR did a great thing when they went off and organized, and, you know, they saw where they could take their event and go on its own, and they've been very successful with it. And I'm very proud of those guys, because I knew all those guys. The original 6 that started it, you know, were friends of mine, so I'm glad for them.
There's been a big time change in the bulls, the quality of bulls. So many people got to raising these top bulls, and they've almost put themselves out of the bucking bull business, because the bulls have got so bad that they can hardly find enough bulls that the cowboys can ride them.
I believe the business 10 years from now will be progressing the way it is now. Rodeo may become more mainstream. I see it being on TV a lot more. I unfortunately think maybe some of the smaller venues might die down just because out of cost, overhead costs, fuel goes up, feed goes up, all of our costs go up, so we have to pass those to the communities. And some of these communities just can't afford to pay that, you know. I do have my concerns about our organization and the structure of it. I believe that we have a great sport, but I just don't know that it can handle being splintered off a lot of different ways. You know, I think our company will be involved. I'm excited about the genetics that we have up and coming.
Welcome to Rattlesnake Butte. There's no other place quite like this. Enter at your own risk. Harry Vold, Marshall.
The Harry Vold Rodeo Company is just Dad and I. And my mom, she plays a very large role in, she does all the costumes and the, a lot of the equipment, the front end, the frosting, should you say, on the cake is my mom's doing.
Kirsten, she's with us and she runs the chutes and keeps track of all of these horses.
My role as the manager at the Harry Vold Rodeo Company is just to kind of do the day-to-day things that it takes, from feeding the stock to sorting the stock, picking up equipment, getting things repaired. You write the checks, make the contracts, try to keep the committees feeling satisfied with the product you're bringing. A lot of ours is genetics and breeding the horses to the up and coming, so you want to keep track of all that, make sure that the mares that are producing, you're breeding them back, and the ones that aren't producing, that you don't breed them back. All these bloodlines that we're in now, my dad started when he brought over 40 head of horses from Canada, and I believe that was in '71. And that these genetics that we're into now, most of them have derived from those horses. Not only has he helped the bloodlines in our own company, but he's also helped a lot of other rodeo companies in this business. So, hey, you two are on the trail. Let's see, stick you right here. The method we teach horses is that they can only pass you on the left. They can't pass humans or people on the right, and we try to teach them to work one at a time, bring them down the alleyway, and not ball up and then all come at once, We try to work them with the flag. We don't hit them with it, but we just use it as they respect that flag, and they know whenever you pick it up, it opens up and they come down the alleyway, and then whenever you stick it out there, it stops them. And if you teach them that from the beginning, then they learn manners, and then they're not ill-mannered, not running over the top of you. Because a lot of times you don't have a staff of 8 people to be able to sort horses. You need to be able to literally do it by yourself if you can. I brought these horses in from a school that I bucked them in San Antonio for Cowboy Outfitters this past weekend. And some of them hadn't been bucked before, and others just needed some more trips on them. And now I'm just splitting them up. Some are going on the truck and they'll go to El Paso, Texas, our first rodeo, and then others will be saved for the wild horse race in Prescott, Arizona. These are the ones that are the up and coming stars. I don't really take them on the road to go to the rodeos until they're at least 5. By the time they're 6 years old, they need to show enough productivity to stay with us, or I need to find them another home. Just because a horse doesn't work out for our level, at professional level, they can go find a home with contractors that take to like high school rodeos or junior rodeos or just open rodeos and things like that, You can't train one to buck, and that's sometimes a misconception. I wish you could. It would make my job easier if I could just line them up and tell them you guys all need to buck a certain way, and then I wouldn't have to sell any of them. But it doesn't work that way. They either have it in them or they don't, and they either enjoy it or they don't. As far as training them would go, we do most of the training goes is just, I call it chute school, and we just run them in a chute. We have chutes at the ranch, and we run them in, and we put a neck rope on them, and we put a rigging on them, we hang a flank on them, and we saddle them, we put a halter on them. And we try to do all that at home, so that when you take them to a rodeo, it doesn't blow their mind, and all they got to do is go out there and buck.
It's not always been that easy for Kirsten to be their head ramrod, because not everybody wants to take orders from a lady. But Kirsten's got a way about her where she's easy to handle, easy to talk to. She's done well, takes care of things well, knows every horse. If I have a corral full of 500 horses, she by sight can name every horse.
The rodeo committees that that my dad always dealt with. I mean, he was infamous for having the handshake agreement. You know, a lot of his contracts were never on paper. They had a handshake at the end of the rodeo and a gentleman's agreement, and they'd come back the next year. The same trust that they have for Dad, they've moved towards me, so I'm lucky that way. And so I'm very careful to protect that trust and not do anything different, you know, than what we've already agreed on. Whenever a guy like him has set such a high bar for being ethical and respected, all you want to do is just, I'm not trying to raise the bar, I just want to stay level to the bar. And, you know, that's how I try to live my life. There's sometimes I make decisions that aren't necessarily probably the ones that are good for the business, but I always say that I have to look at myself in the mirror every day, and I'm still okay doing that. And if that has cost me some money or some jobs or some horses to the finals, then, you know, so be it. I got to be okay with that, because I don't want to be somebody that I can't stand to look at the reflection.
There's no secret about my age, because I was born in 1924. So I just turned 90 years old, and been very blessed. Not everybody gets to live to be 90 years old.
That's pretty amazing that he's as active, his mind is sharp. His body can't keep up with everything that he'd like to do, but you know, he still plays a large role in this company and making decisions and everything like that. And he still sits on the board of directors for the Pro Rodeo Hall of Fame, and when he offered to step down this year, they asked him to stay. And I think that's a huge compliment to the fact that even at 90 years old, they feel he's better than other people that they could recruit for that position. I mean, he's very clear-minded, he's very fair, he knows what the requirements are, he knows what you know, people, if anything I hear about my dad the most, it'd be how fair Harry Vold is. And so I think that's probably a sign of that whenever they're not ready for him to step down. He's dedicated his life to rodeo. He bleeds PRCA blood. He still loves rodeo more than anything else. I can't think of any other person that loves this sport more than him.
A horse that wants to buck has that desire to want to buck. And he'll be, if they try to ride him for a saddle horse, he's gonna buck that rider off, because that's just his nature. Come and look at these horses. They're slick and they're fat and they're well cared for. When a horse gets all that he can eat and is cared for the way these animals are, and only has to work at the most twice a week, and he works for 8 seconds each time he works, that's a pretty good life.
The animals always were the main priority around there, and that's just the way I've grown up. You know, in the morning, you know, the horses are fed first, and whenever it's, you know, at late nights at rodeos and stuff, and it's raining and cold, and you know, you'd like to go inside. I mean, none of that happens until the animals are always taken care of first, because anytime you make your livelihood off of animals, that's just got to be your priority. And when you take animals out of the wild and you put them in captivity, basically you're entrusting their well-being in yours, and you're taking that. And so you need to make sure that you take care of all their needs. And I was just raised with that, and I think most families that are in the Western lifestyle, ranching, and they just instill that in their children.
You know, I've got a cemetery here where we buried all the best horses, and we take care of the famous horses. They're all there with a headstone. Well, there they are.
Every one of these here probably bucked me off, so.
Oh, I'd like to have them all. I'd put them on a hell of a rodeo.
I bet. See the care you put into them. Look how necklace is 22 years old.
Yeah.
Did you write the sayings on the bottom there? It says mare with heart to buck.
My wife.
Had personality plus. So
My wife put all that on. She's got her trick riding horses in here too.
There's Crook Nose.
There's Crooked Nose.
World champion, 1983, most famous and feared fighting bull of his time. Pretty cool though, I mean, that you did this, kind of what these animals did for your business, to remember them. You know, nobody cares for animals like a cowboy does, or if you own them. It's how you make your living. To see your colts, what they look like day in and day out, and how you pay respect to them.
Yeah.
At the end, I mean, that's how I'd want my life to be.
Yeah.
So
exactly.
if they see that that's the way you care for your animals, just like a cowboy would want his life cared for.
Yeah.
How much better could you ask for?
That's right. There's always lots of ups and downs in any life, I'm sure. And we've had our share of them. But you have to make the best of it when it gets tough. I had a doctor check me out not long ago. He says, "You're a tough old cowboy."